Hello, my name is Henry McGhie. I'm a museum consultant, and I'm working on the ICCROM OurCollectionsMatter project, which is an initiative from the International Centre for the Study of the Preservation and Restoration of Cultural Property based in Rome. And the OurCollectionsMatter project is really an initiative that's aiming to help those working with collections and collections-based institutions to advance their contributions to sustainable development. Lots of people are interested in contributing to sustainability, but they're often not so sure how. So the main tool that we have for this is called the OurCollectionsMatter Toolkit, which you can see here on the screen and is available from the web address at the top there. So the toolkit is a work in progress, and so we will be adding background information and an introductory video to it very soon. And so to explain a little bit more about, well, what is OurCollectionsMatter? Well, the idea is that collections can contribute very positively to sustainable development in all its forms, which I'll talk about, but we need to know how. We need to be able to access the tools. We need to have the training to support us to know how to use them, and we need to use them to be part of the transformation. And so the toolkit, which you can see on the screen here, is a collection of a growing collection of over 200 tools, which we gather from lots of different places. There are lots of tools out there, but they're often not so easy to find, or people are unsure how to use them. So the tools that we look for are what we think are good quality ones that we think that people in working with collections can really use. It doesn't matter if they come from within the cultural sector or from outside, because innovation should be able to come from anywhere. So let's look at the toolkit. So the toolkit has 4 access points, and you can access it either in terms of the 5 Ps, which you can see across the top of the screen there in the gold colored boxes, or you could search for tools in terms of particular activities, actions that you might be working on, or you might want to search for tools that relate to a particular sustainable development goal, the 17 colored goals there. Or if you're very specific, you might have a very specific sustainable development goal target in mind, and you would search it from the letterbox at the bottom right there. But what is all this thing about sustainable development? What does it mean? So sustainable development means activity, action to achieve a better balance of the considerations of people, planet, and prosperity, the 3 old dimensions of sustainability. It's supported by peace, and it's achieved through partnership. And let's look at each of these in turn. So I'm just going to look and click at on the people box at the top there. And so the summary, which is taken from Agenda 2030, the document for the Sustainable Development Goals, is shown at the top there. So people, we're determined to end poverty and hunger in all their forms and dimensions, and to ensure that all human beings can fulfill their potential in dignity and equality and in a healthy environment. So this is the social aspect of sustainability. We'll come back to look at the tools afterwards that are shown below. Planet. To protect the planet from degradation, including through sustainable consumption and production, sustainably managing natural resources, and acting on climate change to support the needs of present and future generations. Just going back. Prosperity. To ensure that all human beings can enjoy prosperous and fulfilling lives, and that social, economic, and technological progress occurs in harmony with nature. And I can press this home button at the top right here. That will take me back to the home page. Peace. We're determined to foster peaceful, just, and inclusive societies free from fear and violence. There can be no sustainable development without peace, and no peace without sustainable development. Just pressing home again. And partnership. We are determined to mobilize basically to strengthen a global partnership for sustainable development based on a spirit of strengthened global solidarity, focused in particular on the needs of the poorest and most vulnerable, and with the participation of all countries, all stakeholders and all people. So that includes those of us in the cultural sector. And just going home to the home page. So as you would have seen there, that when I pressed one of these buttons, it returns some results below. Let's have a look at these. So if I press it for planet, let's have a look at this one. So the first result here is the 1.5 degrees business playbook. As we look down, we see a range of different tools that the toolkit is suggesting for us. So these are tools that relate to the planet aspect of sustainable development, the environmental aspects. So looking at one here, the top one, the 1.5 degrees business playbook, it gives me a really short description, which is taken from the resource. It tells me which of the 5 Ps and the actions and the sustainable development goals it relates to. As I say, there are different entry points for finding these tools. So if we want more, if we look through this list of results, we're interested in environmental sustainability, but we are not sure which of these tools we're looking for, we can get some more information. So if I click on it again, 1.5 degrees business playbook, it gives me more description. It gives me a paragraph on the overall aim of the tool, which is taken from the tool itself, which is why it's in the quotation marks, to help us understand, well, what's it trying to achieve? And as we look down, we can see that there is an intended audience on the left-hand side there, which again is taken from the resource, and we can get more detail on how it relates to the Sustainable Development Goals. So this one relates to a lot of targets, because we often find that because sustainable development challenges are connected, that quite often we get quite a lot of connections. So we can see here that this resource is focused on adopting sustainable practices and sustainability reporting. Those are part of SDG 12.6. I'll come to talk a bit more about that. But what is SDG 12.6? For many people, they wouldn't know so much about that, and that's totally understandable. So we can get more information below. Let's look at SDG 12.6, which has this little picture here. To encourage companies to adopt sustainable practices and sustainability reporting. And we try to more or less copy that, to duplicate that in the description above. Let's see what that means, because we can get more description. And so here we have the title again, to encourage companies to adopt sustainable practices and sustainability reporting. But what we've done for the project is to create a series of indicators to help you understand, well, what might that involve for collections-based institutions and with those working with collections. So these are suggested activities for you. It might mean that you've got a clear vision, strategy and plan for all aspects of sustainability. It might mean that you've got vision, strategies and plans that are publicly available because this target is about sustainability reporting. It might mean that you've made some commitments that are in line with local, regional, national or international targets and ambitions. Or it might mean that you've incorporated sustainability reporting into your reporting to funders and other stakeholders. So I hope you can see here that what we're trying to do is to help make it as practical as possible for you to go beyond what's on a picture to understanding, well, what are the activities that I might be able to do? So let's go back to the home page. And let's think about, well, I'm not sure which aspect of sustainability I'm working on, but I know I'm working on one of these activities. So let's have a look at this third one down here, cultural participation and social inclusion. And again, it returns a list of results for us. And let's look at this one, the Addressing Global Citizenship Education in Adult Learning and Education. So you might be working in a, let's make it up, you might be working in an archive that's interested in looking at how more people, more adults can be involved in educational programs related to citizenship. What might that mean? What would some good practices be? So let's, again, we can see there's a little bit of description there, but let's click on it to get some more information. So again, we can see the authors there. Here's a bit of description that talks about what global citizenship education is, how important it is for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And then we can see below, there's some discussion here of how it relates to the Sustainable Development Goals themselves. So we can see the resources closely linked to the training and skills of those working with adult education. That would support Sustainable Development Goal 4.4, which is about staff skills. Global citizenship education is part of Sustainable Development Goal 4.7 and is also closely linked to two other targets linked to education, 12.8 and 13.3. The resource supports the development of activity for all three of these targets because they're quite similar to one another. The resource also outlines the elements of literacy that can contribute to sustainable development, and that supports SDG 4.6. Promoting universal access to lifelong learning also supports Sustainable Development Goal 10.2. And so, of course, this will sound like a lot of targets and so on, but how can we use them? What do they mean? Well, you might look at this resource and think, okay, well, this is sounding interesting, but I'm not interested in all of those aspects. So you might look for, well, which SDG target is most related to what you're doing? And you might look at Sustainable Development Goal Target 10.2, and you could click on it, and it'll give you some suggested activities there, which again are our collections matter indicators. So for instance, it might involve developing your collections to ensure that they can be inclusive and useful for adult education. It might involve evaluating and monitoring the numbers and proportions of people making use of collections. It might involve counting the number of people who are involved in these programs, or looking at people from different social groups, perhaps by age or ethnicity or disability, or by other characteristic. Or it might mean you look at what kind of partnerships are you developing. And these would be things that you could plan around, measure, communicate, and report. And they would all contribute to SDG 10.2. Again, we can go back to the homepage and look at the Sustainable Development Goals themselves. So there are 17 goals covering a range of environmental, economic, and social challenges. And if you are interested in one in particular, but you're not quite sure what it is concerned with, you can click on the button and it will tell you what the full title is at the top there, because the titles are often a bit summarized on the icon. And again, it will give you a range of resources to choose from. And if you are very clear on which aspect of sustainable development you're interested in, which particular challenge you're facing, you could look at the targets. And so, for instance, we might look here at Sustainable Development Goal 1.5, which is part of the goal to reduce poverty, is around building resilience to environmental, economic, and social disasters. So we can click on that, 1.5, and press go, and it will give us the information. So here we have a slightly different display. It tells us the title of the target across the top. It talks about its full title, which, as I mentioned, is not always shown on the icon. And then it shows the indicators there. And then it gives us a return of all of the resources, all of the tools, which are linked to that indicator, to that target, sorry. So for instance, we might be interested in communicating flood risks in a changing climate, which is of course part of disaster risk reduction. This is actually a great resource, 9 principles for promoting public engagement. Because what we try to do with the tools is to make sure that they're really practical. So they might be either involving some case studies or a framework or a tool, practical toolkit, some stepwise activities for you, some templates. Sometimes they're accompanied by videos and so on. So let's look at it. So here we can see, again, the title of it, who it's from, the date, the description, and the way that we access any of the tools is that we just look on the left-hand side here. There's the image, like a thumbnail, or we can go to the website, which takes us out to the resource itself. 9 principles for promoting public engagement, really great. Or we can go back, and you can also get something called the OurCollectionsMatter datasheet, which is what we complete in order to populate this toolkit. But it also has a lot more information in it that might be helpful for you. So I'll just go to the top. Talks about the resource, where you can find it, who the author is, the date, citation, what kind of tool it is, and what kinds of tool institutions it covers. Just going down, how it links to different collections-based activities, and what issue it addresses, which is what's shown in the toolkit, and so on. And so I'll go back to the homepage now. And so just in this, I've just tried to give you a very brief overview of how the toolkit is organized. Of course, a tool is only as useful as the use to which it's put. So I think in order for you to make the most of the toolkit, what I'd suggest is that you try to get really clear on what challenge it is that you're trying to address. Then that will help you find the best tools to make the plans to achieve some results for some sustainable development outcomes. Thank you.